Hello, and welcome to A for Arsenal. My name is Daksh, and welcome to another stream on the channel. And by today, we have making his debut on the channel. Yaar. If you follow Arsenal content, I am sure you've heard about him. I'm sure you've watched his videos. It's Alex from the Different Knock. Alex, how are you today?
Very well, sir. Thank you so much for having me on the channel. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you making the time to being here as well. Guys, just a few pointers before we begin. So it's going to be an Arsenal centric stream. Usually we cover a lot of football, but today it's just the Arsenal. Um, the stream will also be in English. So Alex, we usually do streams in like Hindi and English. So
Oh, cool.
like it's a bit like hopping in there. But today we're just gonna do it in English. So if you have any questions for Alex, you should just post them in the chat in English, and Alex and I will try to answer them towards the end. It's gonna be a short stream, an hourish or so, and in the end we'll have a Q&A session. Alex, before we begin the discussion, have you ever been to India?
I haven't. I would love to go. I would love to go.
Mm.
It's but I feel like it's one of those. It's such a big country that there's no one India, but it's I think
Yeah.
any place that big must have so many different sort of regions and areas and stuff. So yeah, I'd love to go.
Mm. Yeah. What about Indian food? Do you like Indian food?
Indian food, yeah. I like basically all Asian food, East Asian
Yeah.
food, South Asian food, anything, mate. I'll eat anything.
Mm.
The only thing I don't really like is probably some European food. But yeah,
Yeah.
any Asian food I'll have. Big fan.
so,
Yeah.
so you're not like, do you like if you had a choice between, like, say, a fish and chips and then a chicken tikka masala, what are you going
I'd
for
have
in
a
the
tikka
meal?
masala. I'd have a tikka
Yeah,
masala.
right.
My go-to is a lamb tikka masala.
Nice,
There's a place
nice.
called Momo's near where I live, and I
Hmm.
get a lamb tikka masala, peshwari naan, and egg fried rice every time.
Look at you, man. You're describing my perfect meal as well.
It's so good. They do it so
It
well.
is so good, man. It is so good. Everyone in the chat, Bipra, Shantanu, Renissu, Tracy, Mudit, Sid, everyone, man, welcome. Thank you for joining in. Thank you so much. 64 people are already here. That's amazing. Like the video if you haven't, subscribe if you're new. Alex, let's ease you into this session. And I'll bring in with like the easiest question for you. Is Arsenal going to do the Premier League and the UCL double this year?
So I have a bit of a rule about this. I at the beginning of the season, here's what I predicted. Here's what I said I wanted. I said I think we will come second in the Premier League. That's what I said at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And I also said I want us to give a good account of ourselves in the Champions League. Now, a good account of ourselves could look like a win, a final, or a good account of ourselves could look like, say, at the time when I was predicting it, say we got Madrid in the quarterfinals and we, battered them over two legs and they sort of just edged it out, with a 1-0, at the Bernabeu. I'd be happy with that if we looked like we were at the level. So that was my sort of pre-season prediction. I'm sticking with it. I think with the second, it's a bit of a cheat, but I say because I think we'll come first or second essentially, and I'm basically like we'll either win the league and I'll be wrong, but we won the league, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
or I'm right. So
fair enough. Yeah,
either way,
you've covered all your bases in that
exactly.
sense.
What did you predict?
I thought we'd finish second as well. At the time, I think Liverpool had that entire, recruitment thing where they missed out on Caicedo and then missed out on Lavia, and it looked like they're going to struggle with the DM. There was issues with their director of football as well, and they had Endo. And I'll be honest, I did not watch too much of Endo, and it looked like Liverpool are like top heavy in terms of attack, but defense, especially with Virgil's last season, I was like, there might be a little bit of struggle here. But you know what? Fair play to them. Yeah, they've come out. They've managed their squad in a way, and despite the injuries as well, with the Carabao Cup success yesterday, yeah, they've definitely proven me wrong. I honestly, if I had to like refresh my predictions, I honestly have Liverpool as the favorites right now over City. I saw your stream with Rohan, and I think you guys were tallying the fixtures, and both of you sort of ended up on third for the Arsenal.
Yeah, whoops.
But yeah.
Whoops. No, we if in case anyone missed that, we have a stream on the live channel we do, and we went through every fixture and we ended up with Arsenal in third, which I think, to be honest, it's probably because we feel more negative about Arsenal than we think about Liverpool and City. We think, oh god, they're going to win every match. But I find, this is a more wider point anyway. But I think you can get so stuck in Arsenal, just in Arsenal, and being an Arsenal fan and thinking only about Arsenal, that, you know, say we concede a late winner, you go, oh, I could concede a late goal. You go, oh, it's only Arsenal could do that. Or say we, you know, go away to Porto and we have a poor performance. Oh, only Porto, you know, only Arsenal could happen.
Arsenal could,
That could happen to us in the Champions League. And actually, if you look at any other fan base, they all think the same about themselves. Classic Liverpool conceding late. Even City. I don't know if you've seen, there's a tweet that goes around of them with like their defense was like Joao Cancelo, Fernandinho, Rodri, and
we were in the trenches.
And we were in the trenches. Like, shut up. Everyone thinks they're the victims, but you know.
Exactly. And like even now, it's like, you know, Daksh bhai, we're not playing that well, you know, we're just scraping out wins, we're just beating Bournemouth by the hair of our you know, skin of our teeth and everything, you know. It's just Alvarez is better than Haaland, you know. Haaland should be like given, like, just banish him to the bench and stuff like that. It happens. Wakar, thank you so much for the contribution. And finally, Daksh doing stream with my favorite Arsenal streamer, says Wakar. Honestly, Alex, I'm telling you, you have a huge following in the Arsenal, especially in the Indian Arsenal community as well.
It's very nice. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and guys, of course, Alex's channel is tagged in the title of the stream. You should check him out and you should subscribe to him. Of course, check out his content. He puts out really, really good videos. Yeah, just check him out. He's absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite people to tune into every time. I have my notifications on for him as well.
Oh, okay. Yes, legend. Cheers.
Yeah, the bell icon gang, the Patreon gang. I'm everywhere, man, Alex. I'm everywhere. Okay, Alex, now, what are your general thoughts about the season? You know, like, last season's disappointment obviously was there. Coming in, we get Julian Timber, we get Kai Havertz, we get David Raya and everything. But in general, you know, there's been so many narratives across the season till now. Arsenal's attack is not clicking. We are sacrificing attacking fluidity for defensive solidity. Now the most recent one, I would say, is peaking too early and everything. But in general, if you had to summarize the season for Arsenal right now, how have you? What are your general thoughts on it?
I think, I would say my analogy for last season was that we had one really brilliant business plan, and it was really good. And it was a mango drink, right? And the mango drink was flying off the shelves, and it was absolutely brilliant. And there was a period of time where it was absolutely unstoppable. And then around January, February, March time, one supplier falls through, and you're absolutely, you know, I don't know if I won't swear, but you know, you're absolutely, you're not playing as well as you were. And I think what's happened this season is we've diversified. We have our mango drink, but we also have a orange drink. We also have a passion fruit drink. We also have a whatever, and we've found different ways of playing. The mango drink was exciting, and it was a great period of time for Arsenal, and people were very, very excited by it. And I think it was the fruits of many years of labour, but it was not resilient enough to market conditions, if we're using that analogy. Now, to put it back into football, I think what we've done this season is we've found different ways of playing, and that's taken some time. We've I think we've tried, and we will see how well this works, but I think we've tried to start peaking at the right time. I think if you look at the energy levels in the team, you know, we obviously had the break in Dubai, but the same team that played the way they did against Newcastle, pinning that team back, I think something like winning the most amount of balls on the, like, it was like some kind of counter pressing stat around balls after 5 seconds, losing the ball, getting the ball back after 5 seconds. Also had the most they had in like 10 years or something like that. So the energy, the way if you look at, you know, I joke about it on the Canna podcast, but the field tilt, all that sort of stuff. You look at the domination that we displayed in that first half. That was a team that had started basically, I think it was 9 out of 10 of them had started 4 matches in 13 days. So that tells me that the energy levels and with the injuries that we've got at the minute are right at the minute. And we can actually, get on with things and push on towards the end of the season and peak at the right time. But also because I think we found different ways of playing. What I've been really impressed with this season is if you look through how we've played against, let's say, Manchester United at home, sitting back, allowing them to come to us, and then countering on them a little bit more because we wanted to stop the transition threat. Or you look at how he played against Everton, rough and ready, forgive me, rough and ready, trying to win those corners, trying to win those duels. It wasn't a very pretty performance, but we went out there. We went toe to toe physically with Everton, right, at Goodison Park. We've never done that before, right?
Yep.
You look at, let's say, how we played against City. The execution of how we baited them into the press. We look at how we played through them. You look at how we managed City's threat in terms of Haaland, in terms of those physical duels. We managed that. So take any game you like, and obviously the positive games where we won, but take any game you like. We've added something. We've managed to find different faces of this team and different ways of playing. And that's been the most exciting thing to me this season. I don't think it means we go on to win because I still don't think we're mature enough as a team. We're still, average age 24, I think it is. We're still, which is why I predict us to, and I know no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear, we're a young team, but the fact of the matter is we are. So, that's why I'd say that. But the big difference for me this season is the adaptability, is that next game against Sheffield United, I think we'll play in a very, very different way to where we did against Newcastle. And then the game after against whoever it is, I think we'll play in a very, very different way. If you listen to Arteta this season, when he's asked why he plays someone over someone else, he goes, because we wanted to access different spaces, because we wanted to do this differently, because of this little tweak. He's just moving little things around and going, right, okay, against Newcastle at home, can we exploit that space in between Sven Botman and Fabian Schär and the two sixes, Longstaff and Guimaraes? Can we bait them in? Because these centre-backs won't step up because they're worried about the threat behind from Havertz, and that space in between Odegaard and Rice and so on can step into, and we can exploit them there. Next game, we do something different. That's the exciting thing to me, and that's been the real pleasure this season, seeing how we've played out differently.
In a way, yeah, I definitely agree with you. We have a different sort of toolkit. We can access that Kai Havertz height as at a number 9. Sometimes we play him at 8. I think the plan with Timber as well was that he is also a versatile defender who will, surprisingly for me, he started at left back. I thought we brought him in for Ben White at right back. But then, the initial plan was Partey at right back and then Timber at left back. And then Timber could probably move across the defensive line. Fortunately, he got injured. Partey has not been available. We seem a lot more resilient in the sense that, like you said, last season Saliba was a single point of failure that him and Tomiyasu going down in that Europa League game pretty much derailed our season from that point on. This season we don't have Jesus, we don't have Zinchenko, we don't have Timber, we don't have Partey. For long spells we've had other players also. Tomiyasu as well. For long spell, I think Ben White has been playing with an injury, and look, at some points he did look like he was struggling, but we still made it through that period relatively unscathed, I would say. Of course, there are some games like the Fulham games, etc., that did come to bite us, but I do think we're a lot more resilient than last season, right? But what do you make of this peaking too early thing? Do you think we're peaking too early, pumping teams by 5 goals, 6 goals, 4 goals, or do you think it's not? I'll tell you my point of view. I think we are just keeping pace with the leaders right now. If City win, if Liverpool win, we have to win. Simply because I think if we drop points, the number of games obviously reduces, but the gap also increases. And sometimes you can't bank on other teams to drop points consistently. That Chelsea City result, pretty unexpected for me. I didn't expect Chelsea to hold City down. In the same way, Liverpool are getting their injury scare. So it's going to be more of a matter of pouncing at the right opportunity, like at that game at Anfield when City and Liverpool play each other. If they draw, for example, that would probably be the most ideal result. We have to make sure we win all our matches until that game week and that game week as well, so that you have a more say in the conversation for the title. But do you think we're peaking too early?
I don't think so. I as I say, I think we've found different ways of playing. I think we have more energy levels towards the end of the season, partly because we have a if you look at last season, right? What were the issues? Jesus' knee problems, right? We brought in Havertz, and he's played, like, for example, that Liverpool game. Havertz can go up top, and we can win that game, right? What was problems last season? Saliba and Tomiyasu pulling down. Well, we bring in Timber. Now, of course, that hasn't worked out, but that's what we went and did in the summer. We went and bought Timber to try and alleviate those issues, and also to deal with the Zinchenko problems as well. Sometimes with Zinchenko's issues when he can play both sides. another issue. Thomas Partey's issues towards the end of the season. We go bring in Declan Rice, and Ramsdale mistakes. Possibly you could argue that, whatever, but we go bring in Davin Raya to play further towards what Mikel wants to do. So we've gone and added all those things that last season around this time started to have to have an impact on us. I do think energy levels was an issue, but more. Yes, it is energy levels, but more it was tactical flexibility. We couldn't play in a different way. So for me, it's adding in different profiles for different players who allow us, and Jorginho and Trossard and so on and Kivior in the January window, that allow us to become to really use that first 16, 17 players, to go, right, okay, well, we don't necessarily need to always play this style, this, mango fruit mango drink as I used earlier. We can do it differently. So I don't think we're peaking too soon, because I don't think this is the only way we can play. Do you know what I mean? I think if we were playing like this and then got found out in a couple of weeks' time and then something fell back, I would be worried. But because I know we don't always play, or we haven't always played this way, we played more resiliently or more expansively or more fluidly or more directly or more whatever it is, I don't worry about it too much. And I think we have a wider squad. What Mikel said, if you listen to a couple of interviews, I think it was about a week ago, he said, if we can have everyone fit, that is the most important thing. And I think the reason he said that is that flexibility. But it's also, for example, Ben White having a few weeks off in Dubai immediately sparks our right-hand side into life. Exactly. It's not just the different options, it's the freshness of those players who were in that first 11, let's put it that way. So I don't worry about it too much, because I think as you mentioned, we're a much more resilient team this season. I don't know that we'll have to see how it plays out. We're sat here with the hindsight of last season, of course, but we're sat here on the 26th of February this season. So I don't know, but I don't worry about us peaking too soon, because I feel that there is now, last season, there was probably the first 12, 13. Now, when everyone's back, I see it as a first 16, 17. And I think those extra players can help us to manage that load. And also, we're out the FA Cup and Champions League, FA Cup and Carabao Cup.
Yeah, of course. Tracy, I'll take this question at the end when we discuss recruitment and some squad planning issues with him. Okay, now with the, of course, the benefit of a nice, comfortable win against Newcastle, I just want to peek briefly back at that Porto game. What do you think went wrong in that game? Did you think something went wrong?
Look, if David Raya is positioned one step to the left, we're talking about a very professional performance away in Porto, aren't we? So, and look, football is about fine margins. So I don't fully subscribe to that idea that, it's fine margins, you can't complain. But I would suggest, if your analysis of that Porto, there's a lot of policing of fans' emotions that goes on both in the mainstream and online. I see people go, why is everyone complaining, all this sort of stuff? And then there's the other side who say, we should panic and we should worry about the same. Look, people can think what they want. It's up to them. You are your own fan. You get to think what you want, and I'm just expressing my opinion. But if you're coming to analyze the game, here's my opinion. If your entire analysis changes based on the fact that if your entire analysis of the 90 minutes, all of these things that happened, and then one event at the end changes how you view all of this, that tells me that maybe your analysis isn't, not you, everyone's analysis isn't necessarily on the money. What I would say is Porto did a really, really good job of stopping us getting central access. They had a nice sort of 4-5-1 block that really, really worked. They were really energetic. I think, sorry, we're going to have a bit of a cough. What I was really impressed with how specifically their wide players would get more compact when we were centrally, would shuffle over, would get out to us very quickly. But that takes a lot of energy and effort from these players, and they expended a lot of that. And I think Porto were, if you look at their season, I think they'd been on a bit of a poor run in the league. It looks like they're not going to win anything. I think they had a game against
third or something in the Portuguese league.
Yeah, their season, I think from many Porto, I've listened to a couple of Porto fans, they feel their season, it might not be, but they feel that their season's over. So the Champions League is do or die for them. So from Porto's perspective, they also did very well in terms of stopping us getting the ball in play very often, playing for free kicks, playing for, making I think even the pitch itself, people who were there said the pitch itself wasn't very good. So they did their job. In the end, if we were in their position, we would have done that as well. Do you know what I mean? So they did what they had to do to win the game. Now, from us, I felt I was a little bit. The thing I'd say is I was a little bit upset with the approach. I felt as though it was a bit.
Do you think we were set up correctly? Do you think we should have gone with? I mean, of course, this is all in hindsight, so we can overanalyze, microanalyze. But do you think we were set up properly? We should have gone for that double pivot, or do you think the squad that day was good enough to beat Porto?
The squad that day was good enough to beat Porto. To me, it was much more about application. It felt as though we weren't willing to go to change it up, to go a bit more direct, to switch it, to try and find people in behind. There is always spaces on a football pitch. If someone blocks you centrally, you can try go out wide. If someone's killing your wide players, you can try and get access inside it. If someone's pushing up and pressing you, there's space in behind. If someone's sitting back, there's space in front. There is always spaces. There is always spaces on a football pitch. So it's about where they are and exploiting them. And what I felt was Porto, if you've got a team who are very aggressive and getting out to you very, very quickly, what you have is momentum. If you watch a clip of Sergio Busquets, he does this unbelievably. Players come in to tackle him and he uses their momentum against them. So as they're coming in, he'll make that action at the very last second and they're just out of the game because he's gone somewhere else. And that's technical quality and that's Sergio Busquets. But you can do that as a team. If they're coming in to press you, if you move the ball a bit quicker, which I felt was an issue, you can use their momentum against you. You create spaces on the other side, but you have to move the ball quicker and shift it out to the other side or whatever it might be. Whatever it was, I just felt largely, at periods we weren't moving the ball quick enough. In periods, I felt there was balls between the lines that we didn't play. In periods, I was like, Saka, Martinelli, take on your man. In periods, there was space in behind that which we exploited. Regardless, all of that, I don't think there was one thing particularly that I went really, maybe the switches. Regardless, it's an approach. I think that was more, were the players willing to take those risks away from home in the Champions League? And was that drilled into them as much as it could be? I don't know. That was the only thing that I would say I was a little bit annoyed about, was the approach. Not anything particularly. Could Jorginho have come on sooner? Possibly to access the centre, but that, again, for me personally, I wasn't sat there going, this game would be fixed with this, as I am in other games.
There's not an obvious gap in terms of what we should be doing, but it was probably like accumulation of a lot of things. Like, for example, just to add to your list of things that we could have done better, I was very annoyed by the set pieces, in the sense that it was very obvious that our physical approach to set pieces in terms of blocking and having either crowding the back post or the front post, whatever approach we took, it seemed very static. It seemed the same, that we were not wisening up to the fact that the Porto players were always making sure that the referee had eyes on whether the keeper is getting bumped or not. I don't think that all of this would have been solved by like taking a few short corners or anything, but I felt our approach was still pretty much the same. A lot of people are raising a similar point in terms of, well, you said the age, but also the experience. Mayank, who is a City fan here on the channel, he's also raised this point a lot of times in other streams, that City also struggled to pretty much navigate the Champions League for a large parts of under Pep as well until last season. Sometimes they get knocked out to Monaco, sometimes it would be a Real Madrid, where they'd play good football, attractive football, but they weren't lethal enough, clinical enough. Do you think experience, or being in the Champions League after 7 years and this UCL round of 16, like, it was not like he says, it's more mental than technical? Do you think that played a part, or is purely technical?
I think no. As you'll know from doing your PhD, no good analysis is one thing. It's no single factorial. It's you have to look at a number of things and try and decide how you move forward. I think 100%. There will be an element of this is our first. Let's say it's not our first time away in the Champions League, but it's first time in the round of 16. There's going to be apprehension. There's going to be question marks. But once you're on the pitch, I don't think that really. I don't know. I think so. I watched the Carabao Cup game yesterday, and Malo Gusto miscontrolled something, and Gary Neville went, "Oh, he's
nervous.
He's nervous. He's getting, the occasion's getting to him." I was just like, "Is it, or are you watching that? Has he just miscontrolled a football, and we're just projecting that onto it?" I don't really know whether that's true or not. Whether I believe in that. Only Malo Gusto will be able to tell us. So I think there isn't obviously there's I don't think you can separate out the mental and physical aspects of the game. Your mental side is in your body. So anyway. But I think yeah, I think there's obviously a mental aspect to the game. I think it's adapting to different styles of football in the Champions League. And I made this point in a recent video. If you come up against certain teams, Sheffields and Evertons and Lutons and so on, they have a way of playing, and we come up against them, and we sort of know what they're going to do. They sort of know what we're going to do, and we'll just play that out. Against Porto, I unless you watch loads and loads of Porto, which maybe you did, but people don't really know how that game's going to play out. So there's more uncertainties, but I think people project a lot more of their nervousness onto the team in certain Champions League games because we're less used to it, and we almost fill in the gaps of technical knowledge with that sort of like, well, they must be nervous. It's like, well, is it, or is it something else? I don't know. Is really, I suppose, is the point of this waffle. But I don't think we can say the mentals. I never want to over-index they were nervous
side
of the game.
Things.
Yeah.
Because at best it's probably a guess, and like you said, it's probably only the player who's going to be the one. Now, 3 days later after this game, we played Newcastle United at home, our first home game after a while. There was a lot of emphasis. I don't know if was it you that pointed out or somebody else, that there was a lot of emphasis on atmosphere. Arteta in the press conference, Odegaard's comments, a pre-match video about we're back home, etc. What else apart from the obvious personnel change and us being at home do you think was different in that Newcastle game?
I think, again, as you mentioned, there was that atmosphere. I think you've seen Arteta say, I think he said after the game, if we want to be the best team in the world, we need the best stadium and the best atmosphere in the world. And I love that. I really love that. I think what we're seeing really is the manifestation of Arteta's kind of every gain you can possibly get. It's turning up on time to training and wearing the right kit all the way through to getting the tactics right. If you can get every single thing right at every point in the process, at the end the result is gonna generally go in your favor. I think what I see in this team is every phase of play on the pitch we are managing to dominate at the minute, whether it's final third, build up, second phase, whether it's the counter press, whether it's the baiting the press, whether it's the technical quality, whether it's winning duels, whether you literally pick any aspect of football. We have spent time, whether it's in the transfer market, whether it's on the training pitch, whether it's just in the general approach to the game, we've spent time going, how do we make sure that Arsenal are the very best at this? And I think that's what we saw against Newcastle. We come up against the team, and they've also got injuries and stuff, but we're seeing, I think, a manifestation of you don't counter press in the way that we did, and you don't play in the way that we did with the with the attacking. The examples I'd use were the moment where Odegaard plays Saka in, and Saka plays it to the back stick. It's like sort of the back heel. He plays it to Martinelli, and Martinelli sort of misses the header. Or actually the goal with Martinelli when he just plays it back to the 6-yard box. He knows there will be somebody in there. There will be someone, and that doesn't happen. You don't know that without spending hours and hours on the training ground going, when my player is in this position. And I won't necessarily reveal my sources, but I know for a fact that on the training ground, they spend time going, when that player does this, when you see him drop his shoulder, I need my right back to do that. And that can take ages to get right and spend time doing. But once it happens, once it clicks, you see that one
it's
brain
instinctive,
football. It's instinctive. And that's why people talk about, Pep's football being boring, which is amazing to me, really. It's the most, it's like anything. Once you have, it's the kind of the eternal battle between structure and freedom. Like anything, the most brilliantly creative things you've ever seen, whether it's the Sistine, whatever, a brilliant painting, music or whatever, it comes from the restrictions. Once I have the restriction. When you're like this, you can do anything. Creativity is kind of it's there's
Yeah,
almost
it'll keep filling whatever you put it into. But yeah,
whatever it is. When you're like this and you have these margins,
yeah,
creativity,
you can only paint within this canvas, and then yeah.
then creativity comes out. Then the most brilliant works of art come out,
Mhm.
right? So what's happened is we've set those parameters. We've gone, right, this is how we play. This is when you're in this phase, I want you to do this. When you're in this phase, I want you to do this. When you're in this phase, I want you to do this, which was very robotic in those first couple of seasons. But now we're seeing the benefit and the fruits of going, well, I know exactly where I need to stand. I know for a fact that it's not even a question mark
Mm.
of when Rice has got the ball in this position, Odegaard, am I dropping into the pocket? Am I stepping into the half space? Am I drifting out wide? Where's Saka? Once you know
Mhm.
that that's what you need to do, then the creativity and the freedom comes, because that's just under the surface now. You're just thinking it's just gone. So I think to answer the question, I think what we're seeing is the manifestation of all of those little moments, whether it's
Mhm.
going from signing Win the Dog or whatever it is, right all the way up to signing Martin Odegaard, or whether it's setting very, very clear boundaries, saying,
Mm.
Aubameyang, you can't play in this North London derby
Mm.
because you're not here on time, all the way up to, the youth teams, the under nines, ensuring that they all have their kit right, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Setting those standards, that, to me, produces the football that we see.
We saw especially against Newcastle. Let me push back to you in that a little bit, because I completely understand what you said in terms of instinctiveness, training it over and over and over again. But like Kanye Trump Tate says, Ancelotti has found the perfect balance between creativity and structure. Also, he believes that they're the best transition team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about the fact that, when you are sort of restricting yourself and you're trying to make the most out of that in sort of a, what people would say, a rigid system, and you're trying to get the best out of it through repeated patterns, etc. But that also, if one part of that machine falls off, like for example, let's say, God forbid, this season Saliba goes down again, then you suddenly have very few options, or you have substandard options in terms of people who can repeat what you expect from Saliba, or people who can repeat what you expect from Martinelli. Now suddenly, instead of Martinelli, you might need to fit in a Reece Nelson, and you might need to fit in, let's say, Trossard. But compare this to, or contrast this with, let's say, Liverpool, who had five starters out yesterday, or
Mm-hmm.
Real Madrid, who have their pretty much their entire backline absent for most parts of the game. Do you think that, even though yes, you be a very instinctive team that is based on repeated patterns, it also sorts of makes you restricted in terms of, like, your performance heavily depends on the kind of players that are available, and if one cog goes out of that machine, you're in trouble a lot, versus having an adaptability, like a Klopp level of adaptability, or a Ancelotti level of adaptability, having a set of resources, and then maybe sometimes a square peg in a round hole, and you still make it work and you still win the games.
Mm. Yeah, I hear that point. I think we used to have that problem. I think we're getting better and having that problem less and less. For example, let's take the Saliba example, right?
Mm.
We want Saliba. Generally, what's his role as the central centre back? We want him to deal with balls over the top. Generally, Gabriel goes and is the aggressor, and Saliba's more of the sort of the sweeper behind. He's the sort of our main guy in build up. Blah blah blah. All those things that we see
Mm.
from Saliba. If Saliba was out, yeah, last season I think that's a massive issue, because you could move Ben White in, but then your right back is Cedric Suarez. I think, but this season you might go, if we had
Mm.
everyone fit, you might say, right, okay, we haven't got Saliba
Mm.
this week. Who are we playing? Then we can go, right, so we have Ben White, and now instead of asking Ben White to dribble out in the way that Saliba does, maybe that's not necessarily his strength, or not asking Ben White to defend in behind, let's say, in the way that Saliba does, but in the way Saliba's line of recovery is just ridiculous 1v1.
Mm.
You go, right, Gabriel can sweep this week, and Ben White can go be the aggressor, because I think Ben White is actually a lot better defending centrally, stepping forward, than he is over his shoulder. You
Mm.
go, do we want Ben White as the central centre back? Maybe we can, but maybe we, instead of asking him to dribble forward, we ask him to spray it a little bit more. And then maybe we change the inversion side. So we say we have Timber going into midfield in that side to be the sort of extra protection in front of Ben White.
Mm.
Having that adaptability comes from having a big squad. Of course, you build up a sense of when you have the key cogs, you build up a sense of, right, well, this person is always going to be doing that. We can rely on that. But in the end, every football team does need certain people that it just relies upon. It may feel scary, but it's to me, it's a slightly analogous to relationships. It's like, there's probably no, if you're in a relationship, you might find that person irritating in some aspects, and you might think, oh God, I'm really reliant on this person. But actually, in the end, that might be better than cycling through every single person in your city trying to find the right person. Yes, there's never going to be a perfect.
It's never going to be a perfect.
There's
solution.
never going to be a perfect solution. So you choose reliability and maybe having to rely on someone, and then maybe them not being perfect because they can get injured and leave you, or you try and go through every single person in your city, and then yes, okay, you're not as reliant on someone, but you don't have that reliability. So you're never going to have a perfect solution. In the end, every single team has Salah and Trent. Every single team has De Bruyne and Haaland. When those players get injured, you are less good. But in the end, that's because they're so good. If we look generally at Saliba, Rice, who do we rely on? Saka, Ødegaard, Rice, Saliba.
I think, those would probably be the most main ones. I'd even put Gabriel in this one, I think. Him
and maybe
being
Gabriel.
Yeah.
Look at their injury records. No problem. So you got to just find that reliability. It is hard because in the end you won't be as good a team, and you maybe want to be more adaptable. You want to get different options in, whatever. And people say, why don't we go get Ousmane Diomande or whatever it is, whoever you want to say. In the end, you will rely on someone. In the end, it's going to happen, no matter who you are.
Yeah. Thanks for that. We'll move on to this next section. I'll just take a few questions and we'll pair them up together. Ishrat says a question: is it worth bringing Saka in, narrowing the forward line and going wide in defensive wing? So basically wide at the back, but your front line is a lot more closer together. Do you think that's a evolution? Because I remember you talking about evolution. We'll get to that as well. You said Gabriel Jesus being eventually phased out, us going for a tall physical striker. Do you think there is some sort of an evolution to be had with Saka as well, more interior, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm it's a controversial opinion. Put players where they're best, and it's football can be very simple sometimes. Saka, and you saw it against Newcastle. Saka had a lot more freedom,
a lot of interiors,
a lot of interior time. So, look, Saka is unbelievably good at football, as we all know. But one of the things he's so good at is he is the most reliable wide receiver in the world. If you look at the progressive passes received numbers in the Premier League, it's like Saka and then like
there's a huge gap between
this massive gap. He is the most reliable person about it, and it's not the fact that you can constantly, that this guy is going to hold on to that ball and get you high and progress you up the pitch. You can play it to him every time. He's going to hold on to it, and then you can create these combinations with Ødegaard. We get used to that as Arsenal fans, but imagine Crystal Palace knew that every time they played it to player X on their left-hand side, let's say, he's going to hold on to it. That means you can start creating patterns with your left back. That means you can start creating patterns with your left eight. That means he's not going to get beaten, and you can always play it to him, and he's always reliable. He's going to do something with the ball and be effective, right? So he's so reliable there that you don't necessarily want to lose that. So I think it's more about freedom, more about saying, right, options. And going, can we get, on the left-hand side, I'd like to see us bring in more of I think Kivior could develop into this and Zinchenko could do more of this, but I would like to see us, I've thought this season we could have used a Kieran Tierney at certain points in certain games, certainly an overlapping profile. I think they could have been great for us. And I think with Saka, there are times when I wish he would come inside a bit more, and I think we're going to see that. I don't know whether it's the best use of resources to have him inside at all times. It might well be that we move Ødegaard over to the left-hand side and have Kai Havertz drifting to the right a little bit more, because that's maybe he's more effective out there, as a sort of an outlet or as the sort of wall pass. I don't know. But look, Saka will spend more and more time inside. He just will, because that is what he does. And I like that as an idea. I just think sometimes we go, well, he's better inside. Let's move him there, rather than thinking, actually, there's a reason why Arteta's kept him there, and also in terms of the press on that right hand side, he's extremely useful as well. So, one to watch.
Okay. Before we go into the squad planning, there's this one thing that I wanted to ask you, and something that I've been wondering for a while, and I wanted your opinion on it. Um, like yesterday, Odegaard said, "Yeah, we used the last Newcastle game as sort of a motivation."
Mm,
Now there's like, of course, it's Twitter, but still, people saying that, oh, those the Porto manager's comments are going to be feeding into that pre-match team talk.
mm,
Ivan Tony, nice kick about the boys. Troy Deeney, cojones, all of these things, and lessons need to be learned, etc. That's what Arteta said post his Porto game as well.
mm.
Do you think there's this thing? I don't even want to call it a weakness. I don't know what I'll call it, but do you think this motivation to play at our optimum best comes only after something has been inflicted on us, a sense of injustice, a poor performance where we feel, this wasn't done, this wasn't okay for us, um, and there is some sort of an external motivation that triggers this rather than an internal thing that we have to play at our best, we have to destroy this team, etc. Do you think there is like an issue like that? Because I've seen a lot of people say lessons need to be learned. We'll get to the lessons, but what do you think, this external motivation thing, is it true, or am I just overthinking about this?
um, well, thought. I hate the word overthinking. People say it, and I sort of go, "Well, thought comes from somewhere. A thought about it will come from somewhere, and then the question is, where's that coming from?" It's for me. It's a separate point, but
Mm,
overthinking. I think people say overthinking. It's for me. It's more about proper thinking about the
mm,
right things rather than necessarily you're
mm,
overthinking. So I don't think so. I think there's something there, 100%. The question is, what is it? And for me, I look at any team. I think it sort of goes back to what we were saying earlier. I think any team is going to have moments in the season. For example, let's say Chelsea versus Man City the other day. City fans are going to say after that, going, "We need to learn the lessons. We need to learn the lessons of this game."
mm,
And they're the treble winners. Pep's, I think, arguably the greatest club manager of all time. What
mm,
lessons does he need to learn? I don't think it's about that. I think it's about, look, you are going to, and you have to accept that during a season, you are going to lose matches. You're going to make mistakes. That's
mm,
you can't remove that from the equation and go, we need to learn, we need to get better at, never losing matches. This football perfection that we're all seeking, I don't think exists. It
mm,
doesn't exist. We're going to lose matches. The question is, why do we lose the matches? That's the lessons to learn. But getting, I think, fixated on what, ultimately, I think I look for patterns. I look for patterns in why
mm,
we're losing. And if I see we're constantly losing matches by conceding late, yeah, that is a lesson we
mm.
need to learn. But if it's like, are we constantly going away in the round of 16 to Portuguese opposition and conceding in the last? No,
You're
it
overfitting that,
happened
yeah.
once.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we can take that and we can take the lessons, and we can, there's certain things we can do about our approach and so on and so forth. But the lessons we need to learn, I think, are always looking back on the process and looking back on what
Mm,
we did, rather than going, oh, we reacting too much to external stimulus. Look back on ourselves, going, what do we need to look at? What do we need to fix? And there's certain things that there are patterns over the season that I look at, and I think
mm,
that we can improve on, and maybe we could discuss. But one loss shouldn't rip up everything that's just happened. Oh,
mm,
well, we're losing late. That means next game
mm.
on 85 minutes, let's bring on 3 defenders. No. Every
Yeah,
game's different. Every game's
yeah, of
different.
course.
Look at the
Mm,
patterns and look at what, how we've got here.
mm,
Yeah, that's what I feel.
mm. But coming back to that Arteta statement about lessons being needed to be learned, what are some lessons, do you think, in general, from the how the progression of the season has been, whether
Mm,
it's squad management, whether it's the integration of youth? What are some of the lessons do you think Arsenal needs to learn in order to progress further, move further into the progress
mm, mm.
process?
Um, I think I think there's a couple of things that maybe we knew even before the season. I still think we need a different profile of something up top. I think we missed that. I still think we're missing a couple of profiles through the team. But then once we get there, honestly, I think we're 2 or 3 away. I think we're missing a different style of 9 who can move centre backs in a different way. I think we're missing a more dynamic. It could be Smith Rowe or Vieira, but I think we're missing a dynamic in the midfield that we don't necessarily have yet. We might need to buy, and I think we're
Hmm.
missing a little bit of a little bit of cover at the back, specifically on the right hand side. I think other than that, I think we've got.
That's crazy, you know. Like most of Arteta's signings has been defenders, and you still,
Yeah.
it's insane when you think about it that we're still short of defenders, considering like I think how many six
But
defenders we've
but to
bought.
me, it would be more. We might have to move someone on who can't be that cover. I think I'm looking at Zinchenko or Tomiyasu, and I'm saying, it's nothing personal. It's not about the player. It's just, can we rely upon you? That is the
Mm.
question. Can we? And that's a big question. So
Mm.
there's certain lessons. I think there's nothing really stands out to me. I think it's very easy to say, oh, we're too naive or we're too this and that. I think that's part of being maturing as a team. I think at times we can be a little bit. This is the thing. I think a lot of it is about the sort of the furore around Arsenal rather than
Mm.
Arsenal themselves. Oh, they're too emotional. Are they? Are they really?
Mm.
Like the players and Mikel, are they? So what is it? Oh, Mikel's celebrating. Jurgen Klopp ran on the pitch. No one accused him of being too over emotional. So I don't really buy that. I think what it is, and I see, with Arteta, like whenever there's a run of the period earlier on in the season where we were struggling to create chances, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every game, I could see he was trying something slightly differently, whether it was pushing White up a little bit further, or Saka was coming inside a little bit more, or Odegaard was dropping a little bit deeper, or Havertz was playing slightly. He was trying different things, right?
Mm.
And then he stumbled upon something. I think what I love about this manager is problems aren't allowed to settle for too long. So we might have a period in the season, and we're speaking right now as we don't have many problems. We might be sat here in 2 weeks' time and saying, we've got a real problem with we're losing concentration at the back at the minute, loads and loads and loads, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, Arteta would find something. It would be either, right, why are we conceding so many chances? Or is it individual personnel? Or is it, whatever it is? So things aren't allowed to fester very often. Like if we think back, I think a good exercise to do is to think back on what we were complaining about last season. What we're complaining about last season, defensive cover. Well, that was signed.
Yeah.
Use of substitutions in the squad, much better this season. Robotic football, we aren't seeing that anymore. Go back over what we all used to complain about with Mikel. He's answered all those questions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's, I almost think trying to go back over and going, what was I worried about? For example, Partey at right back. I remember making a video going, this isn't going to work. And he changed it straight away. I'm not saying because of me.
Mikel Arteta tuning into the different knock.
No, but as in, it was clearly not working. He tried it for 2 games and he changed it. So one of the massive strengths of this manager is that we might have a period of a couple of games where we say, oh, we're a bit naive, or we might have a period of a couple of games where we're not creating chances, or a period of a couple of games where this player's not playing very well. Then something changes. That's one of his biggest strengths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I'm sure it's going to come up in the questions anyway, but I really wanted to ask you about this. Tomiyasu's being offered a new contract. He's been unavailable. I think Scott J. Willis put out that he's been available for like around 49% or maybe less than that during his Arsenal tenure. Gabriel Jesus, third knee injury, still unavailable. I think a couple of times we actually rushed him back. When you listen to Arteta's comments, he really wanted to get on the pitch. He had some fluid in his knee, but he really wanted to be out there. He said, no, doctors, I'm going to play. Zinchenko as well. He just disappears in the crucial parts of the game. And then Partey as well. It seems like every time we try to build something, there is a chink in the armor, so to speak, that there is an unreliable element to the squad planning and squad building. Now, of course, you can't have an amazing foresight into all of these things. Injuries can happen at any point of time. But when these patterns start to develop, that Tomiyasu's injured constantly, he played in the Asia Cup, but then he's back injured. Jesus and Zinchenko, what do you do about this? Do you see us moving them sooner rather than later? Or do you see them now just being relegated to a sort of a rotational role, and then we actually evolve the squad and get people who are actually reliable?
For me, Tom, I think I always imagine it like a line, and at what point do we say that's enough? I think Partey's over that line for me.
Yeah,
it's gone too far. And also we're still talking about it, and we go, oh, Arsenal, we're still talking about it. Well, last summer we signed 3 players to replace who could technically replace all 3 of them, and we're talking about signing another one to replace Jesus this summer. We signed Zinchenko to go. Signed Timber to go right and left for Tomiyasu and Zinchenko. We signed Rice for Partey. We signed Havertz for Jesus. Right. So we are aware of it, and I think we sometimes go, "Oh, we're still talking about it. It's annoying, whatever." It's like, no, we've been thinking about this probably since this time last year. You know, I know it's annoying to still be talking about it, but things change quickly. I think things change really slowly in terms of the market. While the football conversation is constantly happening, but the market is only once every 6 months or so. So, so yeah, there's that aspect to it. I think with Partey's gone beyond the line for me. I think at some point it's not about the technical quality or the level or the player or the person or whatever it is. It's about the question: can we rely on you? And if the answer is consistently no, it does. You could be Lionel Messi. If we can't, if you can't get on the pitch, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So that's that for me. Jesus is getting near that line. Zinchenko is getting near that line. I'd say Tomiyasu's furthest away because I think with Tomiyasu, he has had periods where he's been available. He's had a lot of different injuries, whereas Zinchenko is always his calf. Jesus is always his knee.
Always
and
his
Partey
knee,
is
yeah.
always his hamstring. It's always the same. It's always the same. So with Tomiyasu, yeah. And look, I think with all 3 of those, Jesus, Zinchenko, and Tomiyasu, I wouldn't sell any of them this summer. I probably would get rid of Partey this summer. If we're going
Do you have
to,
replacements in mind?
if we sign a midfielder.
Do you have replacements in mind for any of, like, all of them? Like for Zinchenko, Jesus, and Partey?
For Partey, it depends what happens with Jorginho a little bit.
I think we're going to give him an extension. I think there's an option in his contract to extend by a year, I think. That's what I read.
Maybe, I don't know. And possibly Zubimendi, I think, is a very different type of player. I really don't know. I can never sort of predict what Arteta's going to do, but in the market, because it always feels like a next evolution of the team. I think we need something a bit more of a goal scoring midfielder. So he might replace Partey with someone else. But with Zinchenko and Jesus and Tomiyasu, I think we can give them another year. But it's with the premise of you guys are now you're not in our starting 11. If you can stay fit, why not? You know, you're all fantastic players, but what can we, you have to look at it from our position. If I'm Arsenal Football Club and I'm Edu and Richard Garlick and Arteta, and I'm sat in contract negotiations with Zinchenko, or he's come in and said, you've signed another player. It's like, mate, you're not available. So and I'm sympathetic to your position, but what can I do while you're out? I don't have anyone to play. So it's like a manager at a pub job. If you're never turning up for work and then you sign someone who's taking you your shifts, and
you can't really have any complaints about it.
It's like, you're not here, and the pub is still ongoing. I'm still pouring pints. So yeah, I think all we need to do for me, it's clear what we need to do. Well, maybe not clear, but we're going to do stuff in the market. I think with all those guys, I'd give it another year for those 3. Partey's gone past the line. But if they, it could well be that this is the, we live in hope. It could well be for all of them that all of them stay fit and prove themselves, sort of back end of this season, end of next, till the end of next. But we'll see.
Yeah, guys, I just have to say in the chat some really important questions, but we'll have to take just the Discord ones today. I think Alex also has to leave in about 5 minutes, I would say. Alex,
yeah,
is that okay?
Go 5 minutes. Yeah.
That's perfect. Last thing about this, based on this, you mentioned in one of your videos that as you get to the top level, the margins of improvement in the squad become really thin. Like, for example, I think this was on your David Raya video where you said, if you have to improve on Ramsdale and you get in Raya, it's not going to be an obvious upgrade that, he is miles clear of Ramsdale and all of this. And I think we can say this about the squad in general. Like, if we want somebody who can step in for Saliba without a significant drop in quality, he will be better at some things, let's say aerial duels, than Saliba. But it's not going to be obviously clear that this person is the reason we signed and this is the reason we signed. How do you think we approach recruitment? Not specific in terms of name, but do you think there is going to be, or can you envision some sort of a approach to recruitment for the upcoming summer? These are the positions we're going to prioritize, or this is the style of play?
I think you have to look at, again, in this adaptable, there's obviously certain principles that always stay, but in this kind of adaptable way of playing, you have to look at what don't we have right now. And I look in the forward areas, and it will depend on goings and stayings and so on. What don't we have? And then we go, right, profile-wise, we don't have a line-leading number 9 centre forward who can move centre-backs in a different way to Jesus and Havertz. That's what we don't have. Someone who can create a bit of separation in the box and is the sort of inevitable poacher type player. So we don't have that. So that's what we're looking for. What don't we have in the midfield? I don't think we have as I mentioned earlier, it could be Smith Rowe Vieira, but I think we're missing a little bit of final third quality from deep, from a number 8 position. I think, Odegaard is great, but I think we could use something else, not necessarily to start. I think at the moment with Jorginho, Partey, and Rice, we have a nice mixed blend of stuff at the base. But if one of them went, then we'd be talking about something else. And then at the back, I think we're still missing a little bit of pace on the overlap, which I think we could use. And I still think that could be useful in certain games. I think we're still missing a little bit of carry from our centre backs. I think we could develop that with Saliba or Gabriel. I think Saliba might have that, but at the moment, whenever Saliba carries, I feel he's a little bit reticent. So then I look at that and I go, right, well then, how do you feel that? And then you start asking other questions. Okay, well, who's leaving, who's staying, who's available, who's not, what's realistic, what's not, what's the contract situations, what's the prices, all those sorts of things. But it's about filling in the gaps of profiles that we don't have. If you look at Man City, if they have everyone fit, they have everything covered. They could start any midfield. They could go, right, today we need a midfield that is going to have all 3 of them are going to have 100 touches each. Right, well, we could do that. We need a midfield that's going to make those last minute runs into the box to finish from the edge of the box, because that's where we think the issue is. We got that. We need a winger who's going to hold the ball for us so we can sustain pressure. We've got Grealish. We need a winger who can take on his man. We've got Doku. You've got different ways of playing, and I think Arteta and Arsenal are still missing a couple of profiles here and there.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. This is probably the most asked question, so I'll just ask you this straight away. A lot of people have asked, process. It's been 5 years. You've talked about the phases of the process. You've tried your best to break it down. What, like you said about the injured player, there is a line when we have to say this is enough. Where do you think that line is with Arteta in terms of, okay, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you've still not won anything. We're just about there, but we're always almost there at the finish line. And every year it's either, okay, we can't finish the job, or we were naive about it, or we did not address recruitment necessities in the summer or the winter. Do you have a timeline in terms of, okay, Arteta, I think we need to see something different? Or do you think it's going to be a season on season thing, that when we actually start to backslide and not progress anymore, when we start to stagnate, that is when you start questioning it? For example, a lot of people think that if this season we don't win anything, I'm not of that opinion, but a lot of people think that if this is the year and some top managers available, we should look for a world-class manager who is available.
I think, what's that phrase? The dog wags the tail, or tail wags the dog, whatever it is.
Don't put the cart in front of the horse.
That's the one. One. Always look at process first, because it will, in everything, because it will get you results. If you go results first, the process falls apart and you look like Chelsea. If you go process first, in the end, you will get results, because if you're only focused on process and, right, okay, can we be better in this? Can we be better in this? Can we be better? And you hear Arteta constantly saying, we can do this better. We can do this better. We've seen the team take a step up from last season to this season. Once we stop seeing progress and we feel like we've stagnated and we feel like we're going backwards, at that point, I'll be interested in another manager potentially. But at the moment, we have such forward momentum that I go, why would you sack a manager who has, in his first managerial job, got himself in 2 title races in a row, got himself turned a squad around, turned a team around, turned a mentality around, has the highest win rate of any Arsenal manager ever? Like, what more could you want? And appreciate the bit of silver at the end of it that tells you, oh, we did that right. Yes, that hasn't come yet. But imagine telling yourself, in just before we signed Arteta, what we're going to do is, we sacked Emery, and someone goes, right, here's what's going to happen. We sign Arteta. We go 8th, 5th, 2nd, wherever we finish this season. he becomes the has the highest win rate of any Arsenal manager. He turns the squad value around from something like 500 million to 1.2 billion, or whatever it is. He completely unites the fan base. He Arsenal playing some of the best football in the world. Arsenal get back in the Champions League, and then because he doesn't win anything that season where that all happens, we sack him. I just go, it's like getting to the edge of the precipice and then just going, no. So we have to be patient. We have to give it time. And you look at any good manager is given time. There is, of course, a cutoff point. There has to be, of course. But my point is more, and I would put that at, if we're sat here in 2 years' time without anything, yeah, I'd say we need, without getting to the last stage of the Champions League. Say we get knocked out the round of 16 3 times in a row, or we're out say we don't, we drop off at the end of the season and we drop off the end of the next season. Yeah, we're having conversations because we have to get results. However, if I'm still seeing progress, why would I change anything? And we are seeing progress. We're seeing progress year on year on year on year. The players are getting better. Everything's changing and moving forward. So until we stop seeing progress and the results drop off, I'm not having that conversation.
Do you think there's some sort of like a PTSD where, like after the move to the Emirates, we were obviously on a shoestring budget. We were just finishing top 4, competing for an FA Cup here and there. And then every year our best players sort of left. We lost Natsri, Clichy, Sanya to Man City. We lost Van Persie to Man United. Alexis wanted eventually no part of it. And then whatever, regret aside, we start losing our best players because the allure of trophy, the allure of success, the allure of personal accolades or a team accolade starts appealing to players a little more. Do you think there is a danger of that happening? Or do you think everyone's bought into this project so much, everyone's so invested that there is still a little bit of insulation over there?
Maybe. I think there's obviously an individual aspect to all this, and everyone will feel differently. But what I'd say is, I think part of the reason maybe we are a little bit less patient. Say Emery, say Wenger won that trophy. It's won the Premier League in 2016. Let's say that happened.
The
right?
Leicester year, yeah.
The Leicester year. And he goes out on a bit of a high. I think there's far less impatience in the fan base because we've been waiting for a trophy for 20 years. We don't want to wait another year. It's like when it's like Christmas, Christmas Day is coming and everything, we're the permanent Groundhog Day of the 24th when you're a kid. That's just going round and round in your head. You don't want another 24th, but until you fix what's going on, you can't get to the 25th. So I think, I think there's a lot of that understandable impatience in the fan base, which is maybe coloring this a little bit. But yeah, I think we've been waiting for so long, and all through those years that you mentioned, we're thinking, can we mount a title charge? Can we mount a title charge? We get close, we fall apart. We get close, we fall apart. We get close, even closer, we fall apart. So that keep on happening, even though that is what happens to 99% of football teams. There's only, as that person just said, there's only one trophy to be won. And you have to look at the environment as well. He's up against the two of
I remember your video on
Guardiola and Klopp. Guardiola and Klopp are in everyone's top 2 Premier League top 5 Premier League managers of all time. For me, Klopp is sort of 4th, 5th, and Pep's 1st. And we're saying sack him because he can't beat them. And they're also leaving, probably Klopp's leaving this year, and Guardiola will be soon after. And there's people who want to sack him now. Mental.
Well, it is what it is. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for the questions. There were some amazing questions. There was stuff about we can't just keep buying. We have to sell. Who do we sell? I wanted to ask you about that. There was stuff like about having plan A's and plan B's. There was a lot of questions on the Discord. But Alex, thank you so much for your time. Maybe we can tackle some of these issues later sometime in another stream. I really enjoyed having you. I hope you had a great time as well.
Great time. Thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate it. I'd love to come back on. All good.
Of course. Thank you so much. Just before you leave, Alex, tell the people where they can find you on your socials. If you want to promote anything, let me know.
Check me out on YouTube. Just put in The Different Knock. You'll find me. I'm on Twitter at DiffKnock, X at DiffKnock, and at AM on football, not aim on football.
Okay. And you can check that out. It's always on the bot. You can check him out on socials as well. Alex, thank you once again for coming on. Guys, I'll see you all soon. Maybe we'll do a later stream tonight or tomorrow for sure. Thank you all soon. See you all soon. Alex, thank you once again.
Thank you.
We'll see you all later. Tata. Bye-bye. See you all soon. As always, come on, you Gunners. Bye.